Hello everyone, Nubkeks here. I'm on the public test realm. We can see there's a bunch of people here as well getting in some last minute practice before the pre-patch goes live. Obviously, I wasn't actually planning to make this video, as you might be able to tell. I'm in my dressing gown. It's a cold afternoon here in Ireland. We gotta wait an extra day for the pre-patch, unfortunately, though I will be streaming the pre-patch tomorrow. From probably about midday Irish time. If you want to come hang out with me on stream, twitch.tv/Nubkeks, I might see you there. But yeah, this video, I said, you know what? Why the heck not? Let's do a guide, a quick little guide for Shadow Priest in the pre-patch, right? Help people get started, because this is a rework spec, massive rework to the spec. It's super fun, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested in checking this out and testing out the Shadow Priest in the pre-patch. So, hell, let's do it. Let's go. So, let's try to break down like the core gameplay, the core rotation, the new rotation, the new spells we're going to be working with. We'll look at the talent builds, Azerite essences, Azerite powers, essences, gems, enchants, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Okay, so, right, there's a lot to break down here. I'll try to get through it quickly. A big old info dump. You can watch the video twice if it's too much. We'll see. Let me know. Anyway, we've got 2 dots that we want to have up on our target at basically all times. You're going to be familiar with these if you played with Shadow Priest before, although you will note that Shadowward Pain is instant cast, right? Instant cast dot for 16 seconds. Vampiric Touch has a cast time. That's going to do a dot for 21 seconds. One thing to note is Vampiric Touch is more important than Shadowward Pain, so that's the one that's your priority, but generally speaking, you want to have both of these up on all the targets that you are fighting, so long as they're going to live for at least 6 seconds. If they're going to die in, 4 seconds, not worth it. Anything longer than that, really, and you want to keep these on at all times. Okay, then we're going to be using Mind Blast, basically on cooldown as well. This is a short cooldown, as you can see, a very quick cast as well. It's going to do some instant damage, and it's going to generate 7 insanity for us. When Mind Blast is on cooldown, we're going to fill in with either Mind Flay or Mind Sear. See, Mind Sear is going to is our AoE filler. It's going to do 6 insanity per target hit over the duration. Mind Flay is going to give us 18 insanity over the duration. So, obviously, Mind Sear and Mind Flay are basically equal at 3 targets. At more than 3 targets, you're going to do Mind Sear. At 2 or 1 target, you're going to do a Mind Flay instead. So this does shadow damage over about 3.5 seconds. Mind Flay does a movement speed slow as well. And yeah, they just give you some insanity. What are we spending this insanity on? We're spending that on Devouring Plague. This is our new insanity spender, seeing as Voidform got reworked to be a 1.5 minute, a 90-second cooldown. Devouring Plague is going to do some instant upfront damage, and it's going to do a nice big beefy dot over 6 seconds. So it's a quick dot, and it hits very, very hard. So you're going to be spending your insanity on that. We also have Shadowward Death, which is worth noting. It's a short enough cooldown. Essentially, this does 150% more damage to targets below 20% health. If they're below 20% health, this is another thing just to use on cooldown as well. So just to point that out. There's a few little passives that tie into this before we go into Voidform, right? So number 1, we have a new Mastery. As you can see, I am not geared for Mastery, but Mastery is actually very good right now. So I'm actually going to talk about this in the stat section, but quite possibly re-gearing a good bit towards Mastery might be something we do. Right now, I only a very low Mastery, right? Only 13% right here, but what this does is for every dot, so for Shadowward Pain, Vampiric Touch, or Devouring Plague, I'm going to do 13% more damage to my target. If all 3 of them are on a target, that's 39, 40% basically, 40% more damage to the target. So very, very powerful Mastery, very cool, and definitely something you want to play around. Shadowy Apparitions have been reworked as well. So whenever we use Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, or Void Bolt, essentially, we haven't talked about Void Bolt, but these are your direct damage spells onto a target. If for every target that has a Vampiric Touch on them, it's going to send this Shadowy Apparition, this ghost at those targets. The ghosts do a little bit of damage. If you critically strike with your Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, or Void Bolt, you'll make 2 apparitions instead. So this is actually extremely important for pre-patch. I'll cover why in a minute. And then finally, the other passive I want to point out here is Dark Thoughts. So for every damage over time effect we have on the target, so Shadowward Pain, Vampiric Touch, Devouring Plague, Mind Flay or Mind Sear have a 3% chance per dot to trigger a Dark Thought. So Dark Thought is going to give us another charge of Mind Blast, which is nice, and it will let us instant cast that Mind Blast, and we can also cast it while we're channeling Mind Flay or Mind Sear. So that's pretty nice, right? It's definitely going to fit into the rotation and spice up the rotation a little bit. We put that stuff together, and generally speaking, what you're going to be doing is you're going to go in, you're going to maintain your 2 dots, do Mind Blast on cooldown. If they're in Execute, do Shadowward Death. When they're below 20% health, fill in with Mind Flay. Obviously, against multiple targets, 3+, start channeling, filling in with Mind Sear instead. spend your Dark Thought procs while you're channeling your Mind Flay or Seer, and then be dumping your Insanity with Devouring Plague, right? Dump your Insanity with Devouring Plague. Our big cooldowns, we also have actually, well, another cooldown. We've got Mindbender, or if we go for Damnation instead, Shadow Fiend or Voidling, as I've got it glyphed into. You're just going to be using this guy pretty much on cooldown as well. He's just going to do some damage for 15 seconds, give you some Insanity. We'll talk about Mindbender in a minute. But yeah, Voidform. 1.5 minute cooldown, 90-second cooldown. Got a little bit of a cast to it. You do about 1,000 shadow damage to all enemies in AoE, and you go into Voidform. So Voidform is going to last for 15 seconds. It's going to give you 20% spell power. That's up from the 10% spell power of Shadow Form. So it's like an upgraded Shadow Form, 10% more damage just in general. It's going to give you an additional charge of Mind Blast permanently, so you have 2 charges rolling of Mind Blast for all of Voidform. And it's also going to give you access to Void Bolt, right? The Void Eruption button is going to be replaced by Void Bolt. Void Bolt is essentially going to be every 3rd GCD in Void form. It's going to be Void Bolt. So this does some direct damage. It also extends the duration of Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch on all nearby targets by 3 seconds. And it gives you 12 Insanity. So it gives you lots and lots of Insanity. It obviously is going to trigger a Shadowy Apparition. And extending your dots means that you have to spend a lot less GCDs applying your dots. And you can spend more GCDs channeling your Mind Flay or Mind Seer, or casting your Mind Blast, getting more Shadowy Apparitions, getting more Dark Thought procs, etc. Okay, before we break down the actual opener rotation and stuff, I'm just going to cover talents really, really fast. Actually, and also our essences and our Azerite powers, etc. Let me cover the Azerite powers first, right? Azerite powers first. So this is, I think, probably your ideal build. So this is the... You can mix this around a little bit, but these are sort of your best gear, right? So these are from... This is obviously from Mythic N'Zoth. Or one of these is a Mythic N'Zoth, and one of them is Mythic Carapace of N'Zoth, so they're your best in slot. So you're going to be going for Spiteful Apparitions and Heart of Darkness. Spiteful Apparitions and Heart of Darkness, and then you want 1 Whispers of the Damned and another Spiteful Apparitions. So 3 Spiteful Apparitions. This is why Shadowy Apparitions is insane. You'll see why. It makes all of your Shadowy Apparitions do more damage to enemies suffering from Vampiric Touch. They always have Vampiric Touch on them. All your Shadowy Apparitions basically do more damage. Whispers of the Damned gives you loads more Insanity whenever you crit with Mind Blast. And yeah, then Heart of Darkness just gives you some secondary stats. All secondary stats are quite good for us, so this is good value. So yeah, you're going to be running those, and I'll show you the damage breakdown in a second. For essences, I think this is essentially your single target thing. You're going to have Condensed Life Force as your major. You're going to sync that up with every second Void form, obviously. Memory of Lucid Dreams Minor gives you a big proc of versatility and refund some Insanity, which is kind of... I don't know if that works right now, but the versatility proc is worthwhile. Essence of the Focusing Iris gives you some haste. And then Reaping, Breath of the Dying, Reaping Flames is really good as well. Lethal Strikes as another minor. In pure single target, you can use Crucible of Flame instead. For AoE, you'd be using Essence of the Focusing Iris there, and you slot in Blood of the Enemy instead over there, right? Slot in over there. So that would be for AoE. Where's... Oh yeah, I don't have rank 4 of this. Rank 2 Ripple in Space, lol. Okay, cool. So, we got that stuff going in. For our talents then, this is your sort of cookie cutter talent build. This is your cookie cutter talent build, I think, for most situations. Fortress of the Mind is going to be the best one for pure single target. Once you add in a second target, even a little bit, I think Unfurling Darkness is going to pull ahead. Fortress of the Mind just makes your Mind Flay, so your single target filler and Mind Blast do more damage, generate more Insanity. So if you're ever going to be using Mind Seer, or if you're going to be multi-dotting, Unfurling Darkness pulls ahead. After casting Vamp Touch on a target, next Vampiric Touch within 8 seconds is instant cast, does some shadow damage, and yeah, this effect can only occur once every 15 seconds. This will sort of naturally just happen with multi-targets and multi-dotting, and it's just free damage, and lets you move around a little bit more because you don't have to cast that Vampiric Touch, which is nice. Body and Soul I'd recommend for some movement speed. I'm going through this quite quickly. Twist of Fate is good for pure single target, but Misery is almost as good because your dots fall off a lot more than they did with Shadow Priest in the past. So this saves you enough GCDs that it's almost as good. If there's multiple targets, this is significantly better because, again, it saves you so much time applying your dots to targets. In very, very, very large-scale AoE, Searing Nightmare, I think, becomes very strong as well. But it's not as good with this Azerite build. This is what I want to draw attention to. It's that Spiteful Apparitions makes your Shadowy Apparitions do so much damage in pre-patch that I think, obviously, Searing Nightmare, if you've been following the beta for Shadowlands, you'll know that this is incredibly strong and really good for AoE. However, in pre-patch, because of Azerite, I don't think that it's all that good. I think you want much, much larger scale AoE. I'm talking like 5+ targets, maybe even 6+ targets for this to pull ahead. The issue is that Searing Nightmare does not trigger a Spiteful Apparition. It doesn't trigger your Shadowy Apparition. It doesn't trigger it. So it's still very good. But yeah, Misery, I think you're going to be using in most situations. This one doesn't matter. Then for the final tier, I think these are relatively set as well. Auspicious Spirits is completely broken with these Azerite traits with Spiteful Apparitions. Your apparitions do more damage, generate 1 insanity. Mindbender is your go-to as well. Just pop this guy out, just generate some insanity. Don't really need to worry about it. Damnation's insane for PvP though. And then Hungering Void, I think, is probably the best thing as well. Void Bolt's going to put vulnerability on your target. They take 10% more damage for 6 seconds, that single target. When you Void Bolt again on a vulnerable target, it's going to extend your Void Form by 1 second. If it crits, you're going to extend it by 2 seconds. And sort of the deal here is, right, that we have so much crit strike chance at the end of BFA with all this crazy gear, and our Shadowy Apparitions do so much damage, that really we're going to get crazy uptime on Void Form with this. Those Shadowy Apparitions are going to do loads and loads of damage. We're going to be easily able to apply our dots to lots of different things. Obviously, whenever we crit, we're going to get 2 Shadowy Apparitions instead. We're going to get extra long extension on Void Form and blah, blah, blah. You kind of get the idea. We'll see what the character sims go in, but I think this is, generally speaking, your go-to. Again, you could go Twist of Fate, Fortress of the Mind for pure single target, but this is your general go-to. Stranded to Madness might be good. Might be good for some like AoE, some dungeon scenarios. I'm not entirely certain. I think it could be very good for that, but I think that with the crazy crit we have, just having these super void forms is insane. Let's look at our rotation then for a single target. Actually, let's not. Let's talk about stats very quickly. I think that the secondary stats you sort of naturally have are probably pretty good. Haste is your best thing. Though you will want to regen for intellect. You want to get 1 intellect gem in there. You're probably going to regen for haste. Right, haste is the most important, and then crit, mastery, and versatility are all very, very good. I think crit is going to be quite powerful with Spiteful Apparition, so crit might pull ahead a little bit here in the pre-patch, but they're all pretty good. You can't really go too far wrong, but yeah, intellect is most important, and then haste. Let's look at the rotation. So, open a rotation. We're going to go in, apply Vamp Touch. We would apply Shadow Word Pain. We don't need to do that because we're going to run Misery, right? But anyway, apply Vamp Touch, Shadow Word Pain. Pop off your Mind Blast, then we're going to drop in a Mindbender, summon in Guardian of Azeroth, go into Void Form, fire off a Void Bolt to get our Hungering Void rolling, then we're going to drop in a Devouring Plague, spend our Mind Blast charge, another Void Bolt, and then we go into sort of our normal rotation, which is essentially using Void Bolt on cooldown. Never cap Insanity, that's the most important thing actually, so be dumping your Insanity with Devouring Plague, maintain your dots on the target, then dump Mind Blast when you have a chance, and then fill in with your fillers. So alright, let's go. So here we go. We're going to do this. Going to call in this guy. I did it wrong. That's okay. We won't worry too much about that. We'll lose a little bit of damage, but that's okay. There we go. We're going to drop in this. Mind Blast, Void Bolt. Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, Void Bolt. We're actually, well, you know what? We will actually use our, our Shadow Word Death, seeing as we are in technically in execute range against this target dummy, just to see how much damage it can do. So we'll do our Shadow Word Death on cooldown. Again, Void Bolt on cooldown is really important. There we go, another Void Bolt, another one of those. You can see we're going to get this really, really dirty and long, this really great uptime on this. I'm going to actually reapply my dots, proc that effect. There we go. Spend our Devouring Plague, and essentially that's sort of our single target rotation there. If we look at our buff uptime, I'm kind of curious. We just got a 28-second Void Form. Its default duration is 15 seconds, so we almost double the duration of that Void Form, which is kind of insane. We apply our dots. Again, be spending our Insanity. We can use Mindbender again. Mind Blast on cooldown. So yeah, I messed up the starter rotation there. That's okay. Got Dark Thought, so we can cast that during. Dump our Insanity. Your Shadow Word Death. Reapply our dots. Dump our Insanity. Mind Blast coming up again, dump some Insanity. As you can see, you don't really have to think too much about Devouring Plague. It's going to mostly maintain its uptime by itself because your Insanity generation is so insane with the stats that we have. As I say that, it drops. We're going to reapply Devouring Plague, Shadow Word Death, and yeah, there you go. So Void Form's coming back up. That was roughly about 1.5 minutes. If I go into damage done, we did about 4.6k damage. You can see Shadowy Apparitions, massive damage out of that. Devouring Plague, loads of damage as well. Mind Blast. Lethal Strike's obviously doing a lot because this target's in execute range, so that's a bit overblown. That's not entirely realistic. And then Vampiric Touch and the other stuff. But yeah, as you can see, Shadowy Apparitions is insane, and Devouring Plague is insane. If we go into a multi-target situation, again, what you're going to be trying to do, you're going to maintain your dots dots on all the targets, and this is where Misery is really crucial. So we're just going to, you know, Vampiric Touch these 4 targets, get those dots up. We'll go, we'll probably drop out our Mind Bender. We don't have our Essence right here, so we won't really worry about that, but you'd want to use your Essence essentially on cooldown. If you're still running Guardian of Azeroth, obviously sync it up with Void Eruption. If you're running with the Azerite Beam, which you probably will in Mythic Plus, just use the Beam before you go into Void Eruption again. Same thing. But yeah, we'll drop out our Mind Bender. We'll go into Void Eruption. We'll try to drop out our Void Bolts, and then we're going to be trying to just spend our Devouring Plagues. And yeah, we'll see. Just wait until you see how many apparitions come out. So here we go. Right, we're going to start multi-dotting here. Here we go. So we're going to throw out our dude. We're going to go into Void Eruption. There we are. And we can start firing this stuff off. Again, we want to make sure to... we really want to make sure that every third thing here is a Void Bolt. You can see it's actually difficult to spend enough Devouring Plagues. Just look at these ghosts. Look at these ghosts. Here they go. Oh my god, it's so many ghosts. It's actually insane right now. And again, we didn't even have our Essence coming into this. Okay, cool. Alright, now things get a little bit more tricky in terms of maintaining our dots. So we're going to want to make sure to do that. I should have done Mind Steer there. I did a Mind Play. That was a mistake. Not a huge mistake, but a mistake. So just something to be aware of. So here we go. We can go into our Mind Sears now that we're in AoE. And again, we want to do our Mind Blasts on cooldown and just try to maintain these dots. As you can see, quite a lot of time is spent maintaining these dots now. Quite a lot of time is spent maintaining these dots in 4 targets. I certainly think that on 4 targets, as you can see, our damage is absolutely insane. I'll show you the damage breakdown in just a second. You know, we'll drop in our dude here. We'll just ignore the essences for now. Again, spending our Insanity here. And I'm just sort of dropping our Devouring Plague on whatever. I'm not too worried about it. Okay, maintain our dots. Let's dot refreshes in. Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, and there you go. So we did like 7.5 thousand damage. And this is why I'm talking about this particular talent build. As you can see, Shadowy Apparitions was 51.5% of our damage. That's quite a lot of damage. That's quite a lot of damage coming from that. Devouring Plague is quite a bit as well. But yeah, it's kind of insane. It's kind of insane, right? It's kind of insane. And again, that damage is coming from the fact that we have this just crazy amount of secondary stats at the end of the expansion, these pre-patch secondary stats, the fact that we have 3 stacks of Spiteful Apparitions. And yeah, that's basically what's going on there. This is why I think that this talent build is essentially the go-to talent build for nearly every single situation. Unfurling Darkness and Misery are almost as good as Fortress and Twist of Fate, even in pure single target. Once you add in 2 targets, these really pull ahead. Searing Nightmare should be the go-to for, like, you know, 4 or 5 plus targets, but because this stuff is just so absolutely bananas insane, Shadowy Apparitions with these Azerite traits, I do think that you're mostly probably going to be using Misery in this pre-patch. And again, I think that Hungering Void is probably your go-to. The uptime you get on Voidform is just insane. If we go into buff uptime right there, we got a 27-second Voidform. Again, we're almost doubling the duration of our Voidform, which is kind of nuts. So I do think that that's likely your go-to. Surrender to Madness gives you a second Voidform and it doubles your Insanity generation. That could be extremely strong as well. So that is one to look at for more AoE. But yeah, I think if you go for this cookie cutter talent build, especially learning the new spec, picking it up, I think that this is going to do insanely well in single target, in AoE, and basically everything. Yeah, just exploiting the pre-patch Azerite and Essences. And guys, that's basically it. So yeah, again, that's your talent build. These are your ideal Azerite traits, I believe. I think that there could be something said for a Searing Nightmare build, perhaps, if you got things like, you could stack things like Death Throes, Thought Harvester, Searing Nightmare. I don't even know if they're on these Azerite pieces from the raid, though, so they could be very difficult to get. You'd be looking for Azerite pieces from Mythic Plus, which you may not have. Like, I don't think I have them, or PvP. I don't have those, right? I don't have those. From the raid, you're definitely looking at Spiteful, Heart of Darkness. So 3 Spitefuls, 2 Heart of Darkness, and for sure 1 Whispers of the Damned. Again, this is your single target Essence focusing Iris in there. I can't do it right now, not in the rest area. But Essence Major and Blood of the Enemy Minor instead of Essence Minor for AoE. And yeah, maintain your dots. Dump Insanity with Devouring Plague. Don't cap on Insanity if you can avoid it. Again, the opener, apply your dots, Mind Blast. Mindbender, Guardian of Azeroth, Void Eruption, Void Bolt, Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, Void Bolt. And yeah, Void Bolt on cooldown, most important thing with Hungering Void. Void Bolt on cooldown, dump your insanity, do the rest of the stuff. That's basically it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed. Yeah, and good luck with Shadow Priest. Again, you know, we'll learn more about this as we get more testing in the pre-patch. You know, that we haven't really been putting too much attention towards the pre-patch because, you know, everything in the pre-patch is a little bit crazy, and that's kind of the fun of it. It's supposed to be a little bit crazy. We're mostly focusing, of course, on Shadowlands, where things won't be as insane as this, and we'll have more talent options open up once the Azerite in particular goes away. But guys, thank you for watching. Yeah. Oh, and Gem for Intellect. Yeah, re-enchant for haste, probably. Regen for intellect. Run a sim on your character, see what the sim says, just to make sure. But I expect that's the way to go. You guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.